Hello everyone, and welcome to episode number 53 of FinalBossTV, your WoW endgame rating show. I will be your host this evening. Adam K, aka Bay, is my name, and today we have on Rogues and Windwalker Monks to talk about the Warlords Beta, to get some melee impressions of just what the heck is going on with these two energy-based classes and the kerfuffle that is melee right now in the beta. But first, before we get into all that stuff, she's over here right now. We've been sitting here working on stuff on the show, and there's Anna. Hi, Anna. Oh, no, wait. Oh, there you are.
Am I not on the...
No, you're
see,
on...
I can't tell. I can't tell because there's such a long delay that it's not like I can actually watch the show to see where I am. So I just kind of smile at the camera for the entire hour and a half and
you're
hope
definitely
I'm up there.
there.
Well, it's nice to see everyone again this week. I hope everyone's enjoyed their time in whatever game it is that they're playing right now. I know right now I am actually subscribed to 3, so I have been doing quite a bit of gaming these days.
Whoa, oh, you did resub to that other game?
I did resub to that other game.
Don't talk about it. Shh.
I won't talk about it, but I actually was back in WoW the other day to run in a Siege of Orgrimmar run, and so that I kind of remembered why I enjoyed raiding in the first place and thought, man, you know, I should probably go back to doing this. I know not everyone took a break, but my guild did, so it's been a while since we've been through Siege together.
Oh, well, I'm doing Siege every week almost, so I know that
feeling.
Your pain. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I did that in Dragon Soul, so I know your pain.
Mm-hmm. Definitely still raiding right now, and of course doing all the raid testing on the beta. We have Mr. Vigilate from Midwinter. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
You ready to do this? You good?
I'm 100% ready.
100% ready? You get your dagger on your desk too. You want to prove that you're a rogue in real life as well. See?
I've got a dagger on my desk.
That's so awesome. And joining us, representing the Windwalker community, there's Calligraphy. Hi, Calli.
Hello. Hey, how's it going?
Good. You have some pandas behind you, also representing as well, right? A little bit.
A couple of them. I think they're reproducing back there, but I'm not sure.
Maybe
I approve.
Scandalous.
I approve.
Little scandalous activity with the pandas. Possibly.
Makes China jealous.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's fine.
Well, I'm always a fan of plushies, as everybody on the show knows from the multiple times that I have freaked out about plushies on the show, including last week. So, yes, very much so. I only have one shelf behind me, but I approve of the pandas. Yeah, awesome. The one is actually my Nether Fairy Dragon is at work right now.
What's he doing at work?
I was a little bit concerned because I work in a not very gaming friendly industry, and my coworkers don't really know what I do with my spare time. So I don't really like putting WoW stuff on my desk, but I had a really hard week at work, and I really, really like my Nether Fairy Dragon, and a very precious friend basically sent me one. And that's the one that really means a lot to me. And so like I sat him right next to my box where I file all of my claims and chargebacks and stuff. And so every time I go over there, I'm grumpy, but then I see my Nether Fairy Dragon and I cheer up.
Oh, so you like played some reverse psychology on yourself in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty awesome.
I have David Tennant on my desk. That's about it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I have tons of mixed stuff on mine. I was not even going to get into that.
One day I'll have a lot. But let's hear a little bit more from our guests about the kinds of things that you do in the game. Maybe introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do for the community. I know, Calli, this is not your first time here on the show, but you are raiding with a different guild these days. So tell our viewers a little bit about you, especially the ones who hadn't seen you before.
Sure. I guess I'll start then. So I'm raiding with Temerity now rather than Defenestrate like I was, 8 months ago. Basically what I do is I do a lot of theory crafting, some of the number crunching. I've been doing a lot of raid, well, not raid testing, but raid dummy testing, some dungeon testing, as well as I write basically almost every guide except for Icy Veins and a few others. And I also moderate a couple different forums.
A couple different forums?
A couple different forums.
Yeah.
Oh, which one? Are you a mod on MMO?
MMO and Chi Burst.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Gotcha. All right, well, that's great. So we can get some of the Windwalker action here on the show. I know that we've had a lot of clamoring for that. And now, Vigilate, tell us a little bit about you. You have not been on the show before. Yes. Where can we see the things that you do? And I see that your shirt gives away where it is that you raid. So.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, my name is Vigilate. I play a rogue. I raid in the guild Midwinter.
Okay.
World 5th. Outside of raiding in my guild, I also write quite often for Sentry Totem, post on MMO Champion relatively often. Also going to be posting quite a bit on ravenholt.net, which is a new rogue site, as well as
Excellent.
also tweet Celestlon and other developers quite a bit. And I'm also almost always in the Ravenholt IRC channel.
Oh, so rogues have a little IRC
Yes.
home, Ravenholt. Excellent.
Yeah.
We'll have to link that.
Hashtag
to everybody.
Ravenholt.
Yep, we'll get to that, and I will
And
blab
also
about it a little bit later. Of course, all you rogues that are salivating for it will get there. Very much so.
Well, Archie brings up in chat. Do you write for Sentry Totem, Calli?
Yeah, actually, I've started my own column there called Windcraft. I'm shooting for basically every Wednesday to have some kind of Windwalker or at least monk-focused post. This past week was sort of a look at raid utility and Siege of Orgrimmar, where Windwalker is standing right now and how you can prepare yourself. But other posts have also been perspectives on beta and kind of what monks have incoming right now, and maybe even a little bit of feedback. I am planning a series actually right now that Pattison is somewhat helping me with. I kind of forced him to help me with it, is basically looking at how you can maximize your DPS for Siege of Orgrimmar. And obviously I'm going to be doing most of the heavy lifting, but with him adding in his own perspective to it.
Neat.
Excellent. That sounds great. And Vid, you also write for Sentry Totem?
Yes, I also write for Sentry Totem. I've been a little slack with my articles the past couple of weeks, but
We'll get don't
see a bunch of
tickle. You
those
didn't hear
here.
that. Shh.
yeah.
You didn't
We
hear
won't
that.
tell anyone. Your secret is safe with us. Don't worry.
Right, exactly. We actually have a bunch of Sentry Totem writers, usually that pop by the chat and stuff, and we've interviewed quite a number of them on the show. So again, I will get into what that is if you've never heard about what Sentry Totem is later in the show. But I wanted to open up here real quick and see what you guys do on the beta. You guys both like test different things right now, but is this your first beta for World of Warcraft, or have you done multiple other ones? And I'll go with Vigil first on that.
This is technically not my first. Well, actually, it isn't my first over at all. Technically, I've been in 4 WoW betas. I was in TPC and Wrath betas, but I was more casual back then. I mostly only tried out my class changes. I didn't get into Cata beta. Never got an invite, but I definitely did get an invite with MOP due to annual pass. And that's when I started to do extensive beta testing. And right now on WoD beta, I've been doing all the raid testings. I've been trying out different, trying to optimize my leveling speeds from 1 to 100. I've leveled 2
you're
tunes
one of those.
Yes, I've leveled 2 tunes to level 100 so far.
Mm-hmm.
Also 2 more to 96, but then they did character wipes. Basically, I'm that guy that I'm the reason why they probably increased the amount of XP you need by 30% because I was like getting up there in about 8 hours.
It's definitely not only you, because I actually been talking to Hyperia of Scrub Busters and part of the Shaman Council, and he has like a spreadsheet on Google Docs right now, like where to go and what to have. So there are people out there that are maximizing that absolutely. I mean, I thought the initial XP amount was a little tiny, so I think the 30% was just like, you know, because you were skipping and losing zones and stuff, and just like, yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple of guildmates who like to do that, and there are some people that just they really want to optimize how they're going to get to max level in the fastest way possible. So I appreciate your work because I won't do all of that on beta, and I will benefit. I will benefit from all of the testing that you do on the quests and things that I have no interest in testing.
Nope.
So excellent.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. But
have you been with Midwinter for a long time then?
No, I actually I joined Midwinter, in October. After Tier 16.
So you'll be approaching your 1-year anniversary at some point
and
soon.
I'm kind of angry that there hasn't been a raid tier out yet.
Well, you'll have your chance when the new expansion launches.
Yes, indeed.
Plenty, exactly. We got 17 bosses on the horizon. And to you, though, it'll feel more like, what is it? Oh my goodness, I can't do math right now. 34 bosses because of all your heroic clears and then your mythic stuff eventually. So, So... And then Calli, what do you test and focus on in the beta right now?
Right now, mostly just on the feel and overall damage for Windwalkers. Obviously, we haven't had a tuning pass just yet, but I think that a lot of people probably saw a lot of my posts on MMO Champion and the Blizzard forums basically saying, hey, I sat here on a target dummy for like 30 minutes. I think my cat is talking to me, but these are what I've optimized so far, and here's what I've tested. Also, I've done a lot of leveling and dungeon testing.
Right.
Yes. Well, we appreciate all of your target dummy work because I know I've been seeing a lot of posts about how theory crafters do the things that they do, and it seems to be a lot of mindless beating on target dummies with different combinations of buffs and things and different combinations of gear. So,
Oh, yes, a lot of that.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes even just stripping down and suddenly becoming very comfortable with your night elf.
well, with those new models, I mean, seriously,
Oh, yeah.
I would.
Yeah,
well.
I don't think I'm going night elf though. It's getting a little bit weird.
Is it a little weird? Oh.
No, the model itself is fine.
Right.
I just spent too much time on a night elf.
Oh, that's fair. So then, I guess you're both like testing different things, of course, with your classes. And I wanted to bring on both of these energy-based classes because I felt that even though there's like this cry havoc for DPS warriors and stuff like that, but RG already talked about that a bit more on his episode a couple weeks ago now. But you guys, I think, have an interesting paradigm right now, whereas Windwalker, I feel like you guys are almost like the same as you were at the beginning of Mist. You were kind of like really kind of weak and slow, and then you got like super good. Do you think it's going to happen again for Windwalker in the beta right now?
This is going to be the first tier where we aren't GCD capped really early on.
Right.
Which is kind of the huge complaint, is that people don't seem to realize that, yes, jab was increased by 10 energy, but that actually isn't the huge change that a lot of people are complaining about as far as how slow Monk feels. A lot of that is because we're not geared to the teeth anymore. It's just like with healers. I used to play a healer prior to MOP, and you always felt like, oh, we suck, our class needs to be buffed, and we're terrible. But the truth is, no, you're under geared, and once you're geared, you'll be fine. We're probably going to be GCD capped by middle of the next tier anyway. Probably by middle of tier 18, if not beginning of tier 19.
Wow, I'm GCD captain greens right now, so I don't even know how to like relate to you because Enhanced Shaman got Sanctity of Battle, which Anna's had forever. So
best talent.
Sort of. It's interesting.
Yep. Sort of. I guess it's not really that interesting if you can GCD cap with greens in the first tier of the expansion, but
it's interesting.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Especially my enhancement shaman is almost GCD capped, so it sounds like you guys are getting a lot of different changes than we are.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm not gonna talk about that the whole show, but I'll relate things, of course, to our classes. And then, Vigil, anything about what you're looking at early on for rogues right now before we get into the nitty gritty?
Yeah, rogues right now, well, specifically combat, it's going to start out with less APM at the start of tier 17 than it did at the start of tier 14.
Right. You mean actions per minute there?
Yeah,
for those who aren't
per minute.
Start
those who don't know what APM means. But it will end up scaling quite a bit faster. And that actually goes for pretty much all the rogue specs, subtlety and assassination included. And there's actually a lot of interesting stuff like subtlety right now with dot snapshotting with hemo weaving, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And assassination's its assassination. It's like the same as it was, only its rupture's a bit stronger.
I've always said assassination is the cruise control button for DPS as a rogue.
Fiery Demise, I think last time he was on here for the rogue episode, said that playing assassination is easier than tying your shoe. I'd argue that assassination now in WoD is easier than taking off your shoe.
Wow! So it's like the Velcro shoes of
it's got Velcro on it now.
Not even Velcro strips?
Like I mean, not having to worry about slice and dice at all at the start of a fight, it makes it feel that much simpler.
So would it be the elemental shaman of the melee class?
Well,
probably.
elemental shaman in Mop, elemental shaman in Warlords is like, what am I doing right now?
I know, I'm just firing shots.
Right, of course. Yeah, no, elemental shaman feels like the enhancement at ranged. It's almost overwhelming. I was like, there's buttons all everywhere. So we'll see. We will definitely see. So yeah, how are you guys going to be attacking Draenor? I mean, obviously next Thursday we'll get the launch date, and I'm sure we'll get like the mythic unlock schedule and stuff like that, so we'll know what the expansion has in store for us. But Calli, what is Temerity gonna do for the expansion launch? Like, how are you guys gonna do like 1,700 heroic clears, then go into mythic, and like run split groups, or attack it with one? Like, how are you guys gonna do that?
Not a lot that is really planned out. I assume that we're probably going to be running some heroic groups. I mean, it's flex, if I recall.
Yep.
So
up to 30.
Running that, yeah. And we're a pretty social guild as it is. So I assume we're going to have a lot of unofficial heroic runs prior to running mythic.
Right. And then what about you, Vigil?
Midwinter. Well, nothing's 100% set in stone yet. We still need to know the release date for both the expansion and the actual raid tiers because, I mean, they've hinted at there might be a greater amount of staggering this time around for the raid releases.
Right.
So we'll see. But right now, if it's just, expansion comes out next week, the heroic and normal raids come out, then the week after that mythic comes out, we're probably going to be planning on our main plus 2 alts for High Mall, and then our main plus 4 alts for Blackrock Foundry.
Wow.
I'm not even like...
It's nuts.
I mean, Crisp may do 2 heroic runs, maybe this time around, for each, but like... Ugh, I don't even know what that feels like.
I admire you guys for that kind of dedication, and I have so much fun watching your streams and seeing what you guys do, and I benefit from all of the testing and the theory crafting that y'all do. But I'm very thankful that I can be in a guild that says we are raiding 12 hours a week, and we are going to put anything that we do into those 12 hours a week. And we may structure those 12 hours a week in different manners, but not going to prep multiple alts. I mean, I may have another alt prep just because I like one of my alts very much, but we're not going to do things like that. So I'll look forward to seeing the way that it goes for you guys when the launch kicks into gear.
We're a very alt-centric guild, even after, even during the Song Farm.
Now, this is you have this in your notes too. We can put it right here. I believe the best place to talk about this is that the Valor capping for all of your alts is actually technically gone in Warlords, which is actually probably a breath of fresh air for all the people that are going to be running multiple alt runs, correct?
Oh, definitely.
What is actually happening with that, Vigil? Like, what did that announcement?
I mean, I don't know what. I don't ever know what's going to be like the whole thing, but they did say that there's not going to be any Valor capping, and there's going to be different ways on how you can get coins. I believe WoW had mentioned that there was like a vendor that you could either do like 3 different quests each week, or buy reroll tokens with gold, or with honor or justice. I haven't actually seen it myself, but I'm just talking about like what the people at WoW had found. So that should actually be easier, not having to Valor cap, not having to farm 50 coins each week for the alts you don't really play much but need to play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I thought when they confirmed that, I mean, we'll get more on that, of course, we get closer to the expansion, but I know that lesser coins are gone, and to get the rerolls, you basically have to do certain things, and you basically just get 1 coin for each of the quests or whatever you do, or other ways you can turn it in, which I think is a lot smoother of a system. It obviously still has a daily or weekly, I guess, interaction, but right now, man, getting coins on alts is like the worst. It just feels...
worst.
It's just the worst.
Farming anything on alts is the worst.
Oh.
I know the devs have talked about it a lot, and they've wanted alts to be that kind of thing that you play because you want to, not that you play because you have to. But I feel like the ship kind of sailed on that quite some time ago.
A little bit.
Yep, it seems to me like...
I think it also depends on the alt, too.
Yeah, and Warlord seems like it's going to be much more alt-friendly than MOP was. I mean, there's still going to be like the Garrison's stuff, but otherwise, it's not like Golden Lotus gated, at least.
Well, that Garrison stuff, it is starting to worry me a bit. It might become worse than dailies.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing, especially if they do more with the follower quest, because you have to check, like, what is it, every few hours for a new follower quest or something.
Are you serious?
It depends on the
Those
quest
follower
you
quests
send
are
out.
annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
I
I
mean,
should like make sure I set up one of those remote desktop things to my PC at home so that I can like make sure I start up WoW and like log in and look for my follower requests while I'm at work.
Remote desktop to your phone or your iPad or something like that.
I used to do that to log into a certain other unnamed game that had lots of queues, and I would go in and like set myself up so that I would start logging in, and then 2 hours later I'd come home from work.
Oh, the worst thing about those follow requests though is that right now in beta, if you like butts level 100, you don't actually end up having any level 100 followers. You have like level 90 followers. Right. But then half of your follower missions are level 100 quests that you have to do if you want to, get new missions. But then you send your followers out, they have to like wait some time to recoup from losing the battle.
Well, because they get dunked.
Yeah. So I want them to make it more, for your followers levels, not so much your level. Might help.
My other
definitely
problem
some
with
leveling
it?
scaling right now on Garrisons.
I mean, another MMO that I will not mention did something very similar with followers. As for other profession type related things that we will not mention what game this is, even though I'm kind of hinting at it. But if they had done something like that where you can do it remotely versus having to go back to your Garrison every time you needed to redo a follower or whatever, that would be so much more streamlined. And I know that they can do it. I know the tech is there.
Well, the two suggestions on that, especially because of Garrisons becoming into Warlords now, is they need to have pet battles on mobile and your Garrison on mobile, because they have the auction house and guild chat now. If they had that, Dalton, take a drink. If they had both of those now, Garrisons and pet battles, back on the Armory profile, or whatever, or the in a little Warcraft app, yeah, that would be amazing.
Agreed.
Wrap it all up. Just get it in there. I mean, obviously, like all the information stuff like that. They might have the tech, but like making it happen, I think, is the next thing that you need to do, because it just makes sense now. The Garrison's basically a minigame in your World of Warcraft, and your pet battles are a minigame in your World of Warcraft. If they were mobile,
I would do so many more of them. I
Right?
would complain so much less about them if I could pull my phone out at lunch and do like
Right?
some pet battles. That would be the coolest thing.
My pets would be above level 14.
yeah, I would have more than 7 level 25 pets, maybe.
I
I
would
don't know.
have-
I don't really do pet battles much. I
Right.
played Pokemon too much when I was younger.
But that's the point. Like, and
You should love them then.
the fact
You're the
that you
target
can
audience.
only access them again. We gave away. I always said they get one, but last week I gave the whole, like, we want to have target dummies for healing and tanking in our garrisons in Warlords, that you can toggle between like boss or multi-pack or AoE multi-pack to heal or single target tank to heal. So then there's your one suggestion from last week, and this one is getting garrisons and pet battles on mobile. Let's get there.
If they could just give us anything to do remotely, I mean, that would make some of the farming that I realize as a raider, there is some farming that I'm going to have to do every week to prep, whether it's dailies or whether it's coins or something like that. And if you could do any of it on your mobile device, it would just change the way the game works for me, I feel like.
Absolutely.
And I think that Pet Battles probably has a decent enough format for it. Like Garrisons, I can understand that there's a little bit more interaction between yourself and the Garrison itself and moving around. But Pet Battles, like, you're just standing there playing Pokemon. You're not really moving your camera or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I liked them because I thought they were a cute way to farm coins, so I saw them as a coin generation mechanism.
that's how I got to level 14, is that's what I'm doing now.
I think what would be really good for the Garrison mobile would be that if you get notifications when your followers are done with missions, maybe not if you could send them
That
back
would be nice.
out again, because that has a big interaction with like picking and dragging and dropping different groups. But like if you could like accept the fact that they're done, so you can actually like just know that they are and you can go back and do whatever
You actually can know that they're done outside the garrison.
Out to the Garrison, yes, but I mean mobile wise, like on your phone.
Oh, mobile. Oh,
Yeah, a push notification,
A
basically.
push notification, exactly. That would be great. Perfect.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
One day.
day,
Hopefully
yeah.
the Sparkle Dragon is taking notes, or he will later.
Yeah, and maybe
He's
that'd be good.
probably already muted the stream. He's like, oh, Calli's on there. Never mind.
He's like, damn it. Yeah. So then how about some Warlords of Draenor overall impressions so far? We kind of tangented a little bit there, but I think that's a good point because of all these new things coming to in Draenor. So what do you guys think about the beta in broad strokes? So what are your thoughts towards Warlords so far? And are there any changes you are super duper excited about? Calli, go first.
So my big thing is kind of going off of the Windwalker thing, but going on to the lore. I feel that this is probably the second worst lore I've encountered in an expansion. For me, a lot of it is interesting because I grew up with Warcraft 1 and Warcraft 2 and stuff. So on that note, I think it's wonderful. But I think the idea of it, I don't feel that the lore is really being pushed forward, so it's just moving backwards. And I think that could have been improved a little bit. Gameplay-wise, I'm extremely excited about it. I've really enjoyed Windwalker on there. I've enjoyed a lot of the quests, and the zones are just absolutely breathtaking. This is actually the first time I've leveled as Alliance. I've always been Horde up until like 2 months ago.
Right.
So for me, it's been much different too. It's been a much different experience going from Horde to Alliance. So I'm definitely very excited to kind of see the other side of the story per se.
Interesting.
Very cool.
I really think Blizzard wanted to show their history characters, this building back in the Warcraft world before WoW existed, right? Like I think they wanted to and they needed a reason to. That's why I think the whole Garrosh arc even existed in the first place. But we'll have to see, because I think we're not really going to know about the Warlords of Draenor story much until like 6.1 to 6.2, because I'm not going to, no spoilers of course, a lot of the things you think are happening in Warlords get squelched pretty simple and easy right off the get-go. You're like, yeah, he's going to be around forever, it's going to happen later, and you're like, oh, that happened? Oh. So it's interesting. We'll have to see. We'll definitely see. Vigil, what about you?
I'm gonna have to agree with Calli on the whole storyline. It reads like some storyline out of some cheesy comic book. But other than that, I'm liking how the DPS are actually gonna be fairly balanced this time around. No more having like 1% differences. I mean, I was just sending the different races in SimCraft. We're talking like 40 DPS differences. Tops.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I think the utility racials are going to play a bigger role in progression.
Mages.
Yeah.
Now,
and I also like the whole one raid size difficulty for Mythic.
Yep.
No more 10 and 25 being quote unquote equal. I mean, it sounds good on paper,
Right.
but in practice, it just never worked out.
yeah.
Agreed.
You and other people have definitely quoted that as something they're looking forward to. And I think a lot of us here on the show and watching the show can agree with that. So I do have a question, though, to follow up with what you just said about the things you're excited about. I am excited, too, for a land where DPS differences between classes are lower. But what specifically on the beta has given you that feeling so far? Because I don't think they've done a whole lot of tuning passes. Is it just sort of what the devs have said their priority is, or is the tuning better than what I've heard?
You're talking about the actual racials?
I'm talking about just differences between. Didn't you just say that you were excited?
No, I meant the actual like min-maxing races.
Oh, min-maxing races.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So that I can agree with.
I mean, there are some like classes like currently some big outliers like Shadow Priest and Warriors.
And anyone using some of those old legendaries.
Oh my gosh. The Shadowmourne DPS is
actually,
real.
For like the last few testings, like my guild has actually had all of our people play in the level 100 PvP server, so that way nobody is even accidentally using one of those legendaries or
accidentally like, oh, oops, I accidentally had my legendary staff on.
Or
oh,
oops,
that's
accidentally I had my amplification trinket on.
Yeah,
right. Exactly. Which that's just because we have the item scaling up, so that's just an arbitrary side effect of the scaling technology. It's obviously not going to happen in Warlords, but testing with it is kind of ridiculous. Seeing mages at like 100k DPS, like what? That's not a real thing. What are you doing? So, yep, I get you.
We'll see.
It's the only time I'll get to use Workwaves. Come on.
Oh, no.
I realize that this is an all alliance show that we have here right now, so no wonder we're happy about the racial changes.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
I think it is 100% alliance, isn't it?
I'm not gonna go into my racial debacle though. I did that last week.
100% alliance right now.
To be fair, yeah, I used to be Horde.
You did?
I was Horde last time I was on the show. I was Horde until May. From vanilla till May.
We have cookies
here. You've seen the light now. Yeah, Alliance has cookies.
They're better than the Horde cookies.
Yeah, I don't know. That starting zone quest, I was like, I'm not going to go into any spoilers, but I was like, wow, so that's what the Alliance does. No wonder why no one likes you guys.
Wow!
In the 9 years I've been playing WoW, I've never taken a break, but out of that, all that, I've only spent like maybe 6.5 months added up as Horde. Rest of the time I've been Alliance, so yeah.
I was Horde for about 2 years as friends, and it just felt dirty. Not like in a good way, like I'm an orc. I was like, this is gross.
Oh, no wonder. You were orc. You should have done
I was enhancement shaman.
Pretty.
I like female orcs. If they had a better model, I would definitely play one. In fact, now that they will have a better model, I will play one on my Horde alt. So.
Female orcs as shamans are fantastic. My shaman used to be a troll, actually. So, but I was resto, so.
Well, we haven't seen those new troll models yet, though.
I can't wait
for those. Yep.
Yeah.
They've saved the best for last, clearly.
Oh, okay. I mean, maybe, or the most broken. The troll model right now, I think, is like it's the weirdest looking one out of all of them. I think that's gonna probably look amazing when they finally get it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Troll.
So how about anything? Well, you guys kind of went back and forth on that. I wanted disadvantages or things you disliked to be second. So you kind of went back and forth. Are there anything that you actually pick out outside the lore and story stuff, like mechanically in the beta right now so far, that you dislike that's being added to Warlords? I'll go with Calli first again. Or Vigil first. Go, Vigil. Go.
Okay, I'll go first. I am concerned about how, quote-unquote, optional the Garrison is going to be at level 100. I know it's key for the leveling process, but just looking through the data mine stuff, there is a 500 stat flask that requires... well, a 400 stat flask plus BOP herbs you get from your herb garden. Meaning, to make that 500 stat flask, you need to pick those herbs on a tune that can then make a flask.
And
So
is that...
either you're going to have to be an alchemist, or maybe you can make it through an alchemy lab at your garrison. Therefore, requiring an alchemy lab of any high-end raider on all of their tunes.
Yeah, I would assume, and we talked
Or
about
to
this
be
before
alchemists on the tunes.
when we interviewed Watcher, and then before then with Celestalon on the show, we were pretty adamant that there should not be any required need for garrisons for high-end raiding. And the only stuff you will get from your garrison eventually will take a while, because you got to build up all your followers and make them raid, and then the time you get epics from them, you won't need them anymore anyway. So
yeah.
But if they have this flask, that's a stronger flask than the one you just make from alchemists, though.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we can all say, oh, you won't need a 500 stat flask for progression. If I can choose between a 500 stat flask and a 400 stat flask, of course I'm going to choose the 500 stat flask.
Of course.
Every time.
Yeah. I mean, it just kind of goes into the, 250 versus 275 food. Of course you're going to go with the 275 food. It's like that 0.0% edge.
Well, it's not, and people might get a misnomer on there. It's not the effect on you. It's if the entire raid has that extra ability and that extra little bit of stats, that adds up. That's where you're looking at extra 1 or 2% damage, and that could be the difference between a wipe and a kill. That's the
I'm not worried about the devs having the wrong idea about what we consider required, because I think that they've got a pretty good feel for the kind of behavior that they want us to be doing and the kind of behavior that they don't want us to be doing. What does concern me is that they will overlook things, because I know at the beginning of MOP, they were very adamant that you on all of the reputations that we were grinding, that you only had to get to revered and you didn't have to get to exalted. And then it turned out that there were those like best in slot rings on Claxi exalted, and so everybody went to Claxi exalted, and that was like the closest that I came to burnout during the active time that I've been playing WoW, and I was just going completely nuts. And I honestly think, I'm not sure that they ever came out and said it, but I'm pretty sure that that was just an error, that they didn't mean to have those kinds of things as an exalted reward. But it wasn't like oh well, you don't need them. No, I don't think that they would have put those things there had they known that people would go and farm them. And so that's what kind of worries me, and why I think it's really valuable for you guys to be beta testing, is to find that stuff and to bring it up. Like, this shouldn't be the only place that you can get these. And the flasks are a great example of that. So.
And this is the most open, because the beta was open for Mist, sure, with the year pass, but that was like a huge craziness. But this is like so much more targeted, and we're only talking about these things and riping and harking on them because we don't want it to be a problem once we get into that progression area. So we'll have to see. Is there anything else right now that you guys have found outside that flask limitation? But
just the worry that that's my main concern too. I mean,
I've Garrison stuff.
Garrison stuff.
The problem is that half the Garrison stuff isn't even implemented yet, so it's hard to test it.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
So you didn't have anything else that pinpointed to do you dislike right now, Calli?
No.
No, I mean, I'm actually very excited about it. I know that whenever Mist launched, I actually went through some burnout myself because it was so many reputations to grind. Granted, we do have some reputations in, but we can't really tell like what their faction rewards are or anything like that. So it's hard to tell if we're still going to have that rep grind. I don't think we will. And if we don't, then that's going to make me very happy.
Yeah, I think if there are, what I hope for is that they're not like rep grinds, but you can just use Apexis shards wherever you need them, and there's no reputation tied to them. That's still like Valor farming, but without reputations tied to it, it's a lot less barrier to entry, I think.
Agreed. Exactly. Yeah. The Apex stuff doesn't concern me as much, although it does seem like it's going to be a bit of an annoyance.
At first.
Like just to get like one piece of 655 stuff, it's going to take like 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, is it that bad?
Yeah.
Which by then you're probably not even going to really need it.
Yeah. Which is kind of like...
Hopefully.
Oh,
I hope
I
hope the Apexis stuff is more of a catch-up mechanic or a bolster for people that aren't at like the bleeding edge.
Yeah,
because,
I'm hoping it's more aimed at like the LFR players.
Because if we can't
who
get it...
can't get that stuff normally.
Yeah, well, if Midwinter, Bloody, whatever, if we cannot get those things within like the first 2 weeks, it won't matter because we have farmed normal and heroic up to our eyeballs, and we won't need the gear anymore. We'll be a mythic by then.
Exactly.
If that's like it is, that's fine. But if it's not, and you can get it because there's no reputation, you need to farm all these shards, that's a problem.
Yep.
If there's some like trinket or piece of gear or a weapon on some vendor that costs 9,000 shards, you need to get it before Tuesday.
It's not happening.
I hope that doesn't happen.
Well, the only way you can really get shards is through the actual daily quest in Garrison,
quests,
which only gives 800. But, I mean, some of the mobs do drop some. while you're actually doing the quest, but you might get an extra 50 or 100 at most. So
Yeah.
you can't even grind it.
Okay.
Effectively.
Ineffectively. Alrighty.
Yeah.
Well, shifting gears a little bit here, I have a question that comes in. Grab this question real quick here, a little bit more specific on the rogues and mistwalkers. Mistwalkers.
I don't even heal anymore.
Oh, no. Windwalkers. Wow. This comes in from Creepy, just because. What are your thoughts on the removal of dot snapshotting?
Actually, for assassination, I mean, rupture not snapshotting is whatever. Nobody cares too much about that. Nobody really cared about dot snapshotting as assassination ever, or sub. But in WoD, subtly actually does care about dot snapshotting, because hemorrhage still dot snapshots, because its dot is based on the application of the initial damage.
Right.
And this becomes interesting when you factor in hemo weaving and the fact that backstab and ambush multi-strikes will also trigger all of your bleeds on the target to instantly activate. Helios on Ravenholt has a little post written up on it right now, and it's actually kind of interesting. Like, if you have like low levels of multi-strike, hemorrhage spam might actually be better than not doing any ambushes at all, not doing any backstabs at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
But right now it's looking like possibly weaving in 3 hemos and then backstabbing might be optimal. We'll know more, it'll be easier to do once I believe Fiery Demise finishes his weaker aura for the hemo bleed.
Yeah, get to work, Fiery. Gosh!
Yes.
You do so much already. Do more of it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
And anything that for dot snapshotting for Windwalkers?
Actually, yeah. It's going to change how we use Fists of Fury. We're still going to be using it because we are getting a massive buff to it in 6.0.
Yep.
But right now, for example, my opener, I try to get Fists of Fury as soon as I have Ticking Ebon Detonator up, just because that is some massive damage. So now we're not going to be snapshotting it throughout Fists of Fury. So it's definitely going to make you really think about how you use it versus, oh, it's the beginning of this proc, okay, I should use it now. I think that we're going to move more toward using it on cooldown versus just using it to snapshot procs. Obviously, it's still good to use it during a proc. That's going to be, hands down, still the best thing to do. But it will make trinkets like taking Ebon Detonator, I think, not as valuable to us, especially since we're not going to have reforging for it either.
And also for monks, is Chi Explosion, does that snapshot? The dot on 4 Chi?
Well, since there's no snapshotting, it's not going to. But
yeah. It's only like 6-second dot, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, and it's kind of coincides with the blackout kick dot, so there isn't terribly much difference between that.
Okay.
I think that one just rolls over damage anyway. It's not something that we really think about that often.
Okay, but just the Fist of Fury snapshotting is your...
Yeah, that's the main snapshotting that we have.
And actually, a correction on what I said earlier about 3 hemos before putting in backstabs. It's actually 4 to 5. Helios corrected me.
4 to 5.
Yes, you can actually read up more on it, as I said, on ravenholt.net. He has a post written up it in the Rogue Theory Crafting section. It gets more in-depth into it than this show can actually get into.
Interesting. Now, is that, because I know with Calli, he only has to worry about one set of abilities, but for Rogue, is that the only snapshotting Rogues have across all 3 specs?
Off the top of my head, yes.
Okay.
I want to say.
Interesting.
Yes. But it will actually play pretty decent part into the sub-rotation in Warlords Beta.
We'll have to see how that works out.
Since
hopefully.
Not only does it snapshot your trinket procs, but also debuffs on the target, such as Find Weakness.
Oh. Very interest.
Yeah.
Much math. So already, that leads us both into what both of you guys have to deal with, of course. Both of your classes are energy-based, and you have combo points. Both of you do, even though Chi is a little different. Let's be real here. It's combo points.
Yeah, with Chi Explosion, it's basically combo points.
Yeah. So how are Rogues and Windwalkers feeling about energy so far? Is there a big difference going into Warlords? Are you having to look at different talent choices for how your energy is working? Obviously, right now on the between the PvE and PvP servers, you have a little different gear ratios because of the gear available, and we can't do all the enchanting and food and flasking right now to really see what your different values will come into play. But how does energy feel so far? on the beta, or is it really poopy pants? Calli, what do you got?
Okay, let me get at my soapbox real quick. So,
okay.
Step on up. That's what we're here for.
Right.
Yes, every Windwalker ever is just bitching and complaining about, basically just complaining really heavily about our energy regen right now because Jab was raised 10 energy. Oh God, we're all gonna die. The sky is falling. It's horrible. Calm down. Oh my, this is the first tier that we have not been GCD capped by like middle of the tier. First tier that we were in, tier 14, we had a mastery that basically left us with this really janky rotation from combo breaker procs out the wazoo that we ran what, like 4k haste? Then following that, we had Rune of Reorigination, which was okay. So basically we use Energizing Brew during rune procs, and then we do massive amounts of damage at the end because of Snapshotting. Okay, great. Except, they did bring down combo breaker procs. It's great. Then this tier, we're running what? 14, 15k energy some people as low as 13, but even then, this is the first time that we don't have energy just falling out of our ears everywhere. And I think that it's going to take some adjustment for people because this is going to be the first reset for our class. This is going to be the first time that our mastery isn't changing and the first time that we're not going to have something forcing us into this GCD cap. And I think that's going to be a major adjustment. And I think that's the major issue with the community right now is that we haven't had to experience this yet.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense though, because that's what I was talking about because I did every class at 90 and every class at 100, right? Every class in spec.
Yeah.
And when I was even like playing my lobby level 60 monk, because I was gonna do a twink guild and do all old content, on even that, I was like buttons everywhere, and I felt like there was like a weird. Do you have to keep up all this? Then where do you put Fist of Fury and like even like a low level kind of stuff? And then on beta now, it's just like you have time to think, you can kind of plan, and
exactly.
You have like this ebb and flow right now, which I guess everyone's like, it's so slow, oh my gosh! But
yeah, we have a 4% nerf to combo breaker procs. Okay, so we don't get as many of those. That's fine. And what is it, like a 10 energy nerf to jab? That's actually not the big difference that everyone is making it out to be whenever you pull out the numbers and really look at it. I mean, yes, it is going to make a huge difference. But the thing is, again, we're not overgearing content.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So what you're basically saying is that people are so used to, because the monk class is so new, people are used to overgearing content, and so they have nothing to compare it against. Since I guess when you guys launched 3 tiers ago, you guys have had major changes to the way that your class mechanics work between every tier. So instead of like, I mean, for Rets, I know that we're pretty much expecting things to feel slower when we go into the new tier because that's what happens when you're not, wearing 40% haste gear. Right. But I guess the monk community just doesn't have that experience of knowing that things slow down at the beginning of the tier and then you gear up and then, your class changes and it feels different.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's exactly what we're going to be going through. And it's okay. It means that we're going to scale really well at the end of expansion. Like right now, one of the biggest questions that ends up asked, okay, well, I have 11k haste and 65% crit or whatever. What do I do now? Well, more haste. Well, I have plenty of energy and I energy cap all the time. Well, more haste.
Welcome to my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird situation right now too because Anna and I are going to be feeling interesting growing pains with the with how haste is going to interact because I'd have to deal with what she does with now, and I have 7 DPS buttons as enhancement, and they all get faster with haste.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm not going to be able to always hit them because 2 or 3 will be off cooldown at the same time, almost all the time later on in tier. So we're going to have to see if they nerf the coefficient of that because, right now in the PvP geared stuff, I am a button every GCD and I lose some. So we'll have to see. But, I don't know. What about rogues, Vigil? What do you guys think? Energy for rogues?
It varies between each of the 3 rogue specs. Assassination and Sub right now are actually faster than they were at the start of Tier 14, which was the first tier mop.
Oh.
Which is actually fine by my... And, in fact, I believe they'll be even faster once we get Tier 17 bonuses to test, which I'm looking forward to.
Right.
Combat, though, this is where I want to get on my own soapbox, feels awful on beta. Even when you're haste stacking, this spec is probably one of the slowest specs on beta at the moment. It's slower than Assassination. And
slower than Warriors?
Yes, slower than Warriors.
Those some strong words.
Assassination currently has maybe like 30 actions per minute tops, and that's when you factor in a adrenaline rush, reducing your GCD to 0.5 seconds during duration. But okay, this all stems from the fact that Sinister Strike is still 50 energy. This was because during tier 16, when combat's haste values were starting to scale up really high, they buffed Sinister Strike. Well, they changed Sinister Strike from 40 energy to 50 energy. So right now it feels like combat is balanced around tier 19 haste levels when we don't have access to tier 19 haste levels, leading the spec to feel like garbage.
And it's really boring if you have specs where the choice is not like which spec is better for this situation or which spec do you like to play more, but like which spec is better in tier 1 and which spec is better in tier 3 of the expansion. That's just so much more boring.
I mean, haste will fix it. That's what happened with Cataclysm and Mists. But at least they can do is, bring down Sinister Strike maybe down to 40, 45 energy, and then also maybe buff combat's damage overall, because right now on beta, its damage is pretty abysmal from the testing I've done in raids.
I mean, I think there is an interesting design philosophy behind certain classes right now. I'm more talking about melee specifically, of course, as the episode's about. And again, because I tested all the classes at 90 and 100, some specs, like say Fury Warrior, is like multiple everything up at the same time. You have options, but you're GCD capped, period. And if you get tons of Wild Strike procs or whatever, you're like, oh my god, all these buttons. And you can literally take Bloodthirst off of a cooldown, so you always have it up. You can hit Bloodthirst forever if you want to. So you have some classes and specs that have buttons all the time, right? Like Enhancement Shaman, like Red Paladin. You have a button up every time. And now you have ones that don't. And I wonder, like Arms Warrior is like button, 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 button. Like, I don't know if is that the idea to have melee classes have like different dichotomies, or one is a little more slower but heavy hitting, and one is like fast all the time and all buttons like kind of do equal damage. I don't know what their thought are. And inside of a pure class, so like rogues, you have 3 different specs to do damage. And then like your APM between all 3 changes, which I think is neat, but one of them is, of course, going to, if you can play at a different level, be like the best spec to play. And I don't know if I don't know how to describe it, but some classes are really slow and some classes are really fast. And I don't know, because the ones that are really fast will only get faster with gear. And the ones that are slow, like you talk about the tier 19 combat rogue, they'll be like good, 3 tiers from now.
Yeah.
Which
it makes combat feel like a really bad spec, because start of expansion spec is garbage. End of the expansion, it's one of the strongest specs and is GCD capping.
Yeah.
Stuff.
I mean, that obviously lends itself.
Yeah, and reducing the GCD down to 0.5 seconds during AR is a horrible idea. It was tried during TOT, and Rogues didn't like it.
Not good?
No, they didn't like it at all. So I would say that they should just change that perk entirely. I don't know to what, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
0.8 seconds during AR is fine, but the 0.5, it just feels pretty bad.
It's pretty bad?
Yeah.
Too much, too fast, I think?
Yes.
Because you can't... I almost feel like if you have a GCD of a second or lower, you can't even play around lag like that, because there's a natural built-in. Obviously, the responsiveness on the servers is being better in Warlords, down to like a 40 millisecond, where right now it's like 300 to 400 milliseconds. Like
I've noticed the more responsive client, but it is a problem.
Still, you can't do that many actions. So why is it there?
That's how they're justifying the nerf to jab with the 10 extra energy, is that you can't possibly do enough GCDs in order to compensate for 40 energy, which is kind of an interesting thing to think about, that 10 energy makes that huge of a difference.
Now, are you a fan of the 40 or the 50 now?
I don't mind either way. I mean, I have really fast internet, so with 40, nice. I'm happily sitting here, hitting stuff away and punching things. So whenever I loaded up onto beta, I actually didn't notice too terribly much of a difference. I mean, I guess it was a little bit slower, but not to the point where I was like driven out of my mind and going to go re-roll or anything.
It's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I'm happy to say that I will not be developing carpal tunnel.
You and all the arms warriors and combat rogues will all feel that way.
Yeah.
But it's also not true too, because I make fun of warriors right now when Archie's here. But if you take slam or ignite weapon as arms, you're fine. You have a button every cooldown. You're good to go. You flow through it. But if you don't, you're waiting for the pizza man to show up. You're just sitting there hitting 2 buttons now and then.
See, I don't know. I always felt like a little bit of waiting is okay, but that's because
exactly.
but that's because I've been playing a class with like what 6 to 8% wait time in our rotation, and I've never felt like that's a bad thing.
Right.
You know, but if it gets over like 10%, like over 15%, then I feel like that's a lot of waiting time. But a little bit of wait time isn't that bad of a thing. So.
Yeah, no, I mean for me again too, they gave us Sanctity of Battle, which with haste lowers the cooldown of your main abilities for Enhanced Shaman, and they also lowered the base cooldown of our main abilities a little bit on Lava Lash and Storm Strike. So they're already base faster, and then they can get faster. I don't know. It feels like it's too fast.
The whole like too fast thing. I remember playing a Rep Paladin in ICC.
Yes, that's a little different than a Rep Paladin right now.
Oh,
just
Vigil
to point that out.
Well, yeah, it is a little bit different. Vigil, come back. No, we're gonna lose him.
Yeah, he did freeze. Man, today is the day of technical difficulties.
He did freeze. It's fine. Oh, there he goes. Well, I'm gonna ask a question real quick then, and we'll get to him when he comes back. Question number 3 here. Let's go pop over here real quick, and let's see. Hopefully, it's on the rogue question. Is it both? No, it's both. Okay. If you could change your class's rotation, even in the slightest, how would you change it and why? Comes in from Aurora on US Hydraxis.
This is one I'm very excited to answer because I have a lot of feedback for that. Specifically for Windwalker, the big thing is Chi Explosion, or one of our level 100 talents.
Right.
It's way too overpowered. Its damage really needs to be toned down so that it's not necessarily amazing for single target. Because to me, it's really boring to just choose that and never go into Serenity, for example, which I think should be the go-to for monk single target damage. In addition to that, Rising Sun Kick needs to be pulled up a bit as far as damage goes. I mean, for right now, I think they've already said that they're going to do that, so I'm not horribly worried. But it does need to be brought up, just because right now we're just using it to keep up a buff versus using it because it does a lot of damage and it's fun to see big numbers. So yeah, that kind of summarizes it, is tone down Chi Explosion and compensate for that by bringing up Rising Sun Kick a bit.
I would even agree with you on outside looking in. I felt Chi Explosion was like the go-to. It just felt like it did way too much for almost too effective, too efficient, I think is the right word.
Yeah, and it pretty much almost writes out Tiger Palm completely because you don't need the armor debuff necessarily, simply because it's nature damage.
Nature damage, exactly. Yep.
And it makes the spec so boring. It eats up 4 of your chi at a time, which just to me, it's not that interesting. I actually don't like the rotation with Chi Explosion as much as I like it with Serenity. Serenity is really fun because whenever you hit that button, you have the 10 seconds that you're just spamming all the chi-using buttons as fast as you can. At the end, just Fists of Fury, just to maximize it. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you heard the question or not, Vigil, before you crashed out.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back.
No, it was the if you could change something about your class's rotation, what would it be and why? You can have some different examples for all 3 specs or one specific one.
Well, Assassination, they need to make the rotation a little more interesting. It's just too simple. Too simple for its own good for how much damage it does.
Okay.
Second for Assassination, can we get Shadow Blades back? A lot of rogues, like a lot of Assassination rogues feel this way. Vendetta as a cooldown is really boring. It's 30% damage, 20% of glyph on a single target for the duration. I think most Assassination rogues would have rather Vendetta gotten cut instead of Shadow Blades for Assassination. Second, combat not having a 0.5 GCD during AR, as I said before. And I don't know. Those are like the big things that I have with the rogue rotation at the moment.
Okay. Interesting. I already bled about mine, Anna. What do you have for Rhett? Do you have any big thoughts about what you would like to change about your rotation? I mean,
no, they actually implemented the big change that I've been
they
asking for. And I guess I should probably mention it since you gave me a chance to talk about paladins
Yes.
at the risk of the YouTube comments being full of complaints.
Yep.
They did implement the bonus that I love so much, the empowered divine storm as a perk,
Yes.
which is really great. I actually mentioned it in chat because chat's been discussing quite a few rotations. But the only change I would say is just as a vague desire, I really do miss divine purpose and I really like it. And I actually would prefer to see the empowered divine storm be the talent and divine purpose be the baseline than to have it be the other way around. Because the nice thing about the divine storm perk is that it's AoE based. So you could talent it when you wanted more AoE. And you can do this with divine purpose too. But I really feel like the empowered divine storm is really great for those cleave situations. And it's a very good single target talent. But divine purpose, I really miss it being baseline in my rotation, and I hated having to choose between it and cooldowns.
Yeah.
So, but otherwise, I mean, that's just it's kind of a vague desire. I've liked the way Ret has worked since they reworked it for Kata. I liked it in Kata, I liked it in Mop, and I'm probably going to like it in Warlords. I have no intention of going anywhere else. And they solved my biggest issue with it by giving us another proc. So I feel like I'll be less bored. And that's all that I really cared about. I thought it was going to be a little boring without Inquisition, and we have another proc now.
Yeah. I mean, I think I started looking in again when I was doing testing. Obviously, number pass hasn't been there, but Final Verdict is too good for Ret because.
I haven't done any passes on how quality the talents are.
Right, right. Final Verdict does too much damage compared to the other two. Granted, the other two might scale better, but that's the thing is that Final Verdict doesn't have any changes or any weird rotational problems with it. Whereas in the time frame it takes you to do the other abilities with the seal swapping or with Seraphim, you don't gain the same amount of damage you gain from getting 2 or 3 Final Verdicts. You just don't.
Right, Final Verdict is just the change nothing, do more damage.
It's just it turns Templar's Verdict into holy damage and like quadruples the damage it does.
Yeah,
a little too good, right? So, but they're still fixing that. But that's the one thing I was thinking of for Red Paladins. My one thing
I was thinking less for numbers. I mean, my biggest concern is always, am I going to be bored? I mean, and then maybe I just haven't been looking very much at how the numbers are because I'm mostly concerned with am I going to be interested or am I going to be bored? Am I going to have fun?
Right.
And that I'm satisfied with because they did listen and they handed us another proc. But yeah, in terms of the talents you're talking about, that could definitely use a look.
Yeah. My only thing before I go to the little commercial break on Enhanced Shamans is that why do we have the haste scaling, but you also lowered our cooldowns on our major abilities too, so they're faster, and then they get faster on top of being faster. I don't think it's necessary. We're already capped anyway with the RNG of Maelstrom weapon procs going from like 2 to 5 immediately. And you have to hit Lightning Bolt because it's our best damage, and then Lava Lash resetting all the time. So you have to hit the Lightning Bolt and the Lava Lashes, but then do you ever get to Shock? But then you have to actually Unleash to put up your other bolt. How do you do that? You need Storm Striking? When do you even do that? So that's my problem. That's it.
just that
little one right there, but
just a little issue,
little bit.
Yeah.
Anything else? Oh yeah, go ahead, Calli.
Yeah, as I said in chat, the other thing with Chi Explosion is it just needs to be reworked. The free stack of Tiger Eye Brew right now is also just way too strong.
Yeah, too much.
And it's just not it's not an interesting rotation with it, in my opinion. It's part of why we feel so slow is because we're dumping like 3 to 4 Chi in it all the time.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Yep.
Well,
I know that Celestalon is listening, so hopefully he does that. Please.
Oh my goodness. Well, all right, I'm going to take you guys out for a minute. I'm going to talk about some things behind the scenes here, the community stuff that you guys may or may not have heard about that you should definitely take a peek at. And of course, we mentioned it earlier today. SentryTotem.com is going to be an awesome resource going into the future here with a great slew of experts from every class in the game, and you can submit your tickets to Help Me right up here at the top, where you can get audited and figured out from a great class expert of your class and choosing, where they will walk you through some theory crafting and log help and armory assistance and whatever, especially when so much is happening in the Warlords Beta and going into the launch of the game. That's a great way to do it. They also have lots of amazing columns that come up here from their experts as well, like there's Windcraft Wednesday, that Calli's post right there, and guild leadership tips and stuff like that, written up by Kern. So some great posts, as well as the option to be audited by an expert. So definitely bookmark Sentry Totem. Of course, I'm going to link it now. It's going to crash the website. That's totally fine. Now, Ravenholt.net. just came into being. And your logo is nice. But this is going to be, I would akin this to the Acarus for Rogues. Acarus has the write-ups and the IRC chat for Death Knights, whereas Ravenholt.net has the awesome explanations for it. It's got the IRC right here for Rogues, has the Shadowcraft link, and of course, got to have blogs, guides, and news, and the forums right here as well. I think the best thing to do is going to be getting that IRC chat and talk to fellow Rogues going on in the future. That'd be a great little opportunity for you guys to get there. Also, coming up here on Thursday of next week, we have the Save the Date cinematic and street date reveal event happening in downtown LA at the Ace Hotel and Theater at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Now, I will actually be attending this event and taking my camera equipment with me, and I'll be recording a whole bunch of B-roll and stuff to make a BTS video. If you're going to be there, bump into me, say hi. I'll have wristbands and stuff, and you might be in the BTS video as well, too. Maybe we'll get together like a big group of people and guests and film that to put in the video. So again, if you are in the area or don't know about it, the cinematic and street date reveal event for Warlords of Draenor is August 14th, 9:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. You want to check that out. And of course, if you are new to Final Boss TV and want to watch all of our past episodes, our YouTube is down below, as well as our Twitter, our Facebook, and what's nots. All of our past episodes, all 52 plus after show episodes are up here on our YouTube page. Some unreleased stuff here. Don't look at that. Just look away. And yeah, all these past episodes, all of our special guests, interview with Duck Sauce and Fat Boss TV, and our Watcher interview. And where's Celestial on? He's right down there. There he is. Right. Oh. There he is. So there's our Watcher and Celestial interview. You can go check those out. All on our YouTube. All these episodes going and going and going and going and going. We're still going. We're still going. So you guys can check those out if you are new to the show. And thank you very much for watching today. It's been a lot of fun. Stick around, of course, for the end of the show. We will announce the show that's coming on after this one. And I have a special little sneak preview coming on at the end of the show today. So don't go anywhere. And if you have questions for our guests, if you want to ask them specifically questions, we have an after show for that, where we just talk to chat room or Twitter or whatever. So hold your questions for then, and we can actually just talk to you straight up. But back to the show at hand here. We have some more nitty-gritty to get into about how Rogues and Windwalkers do it from behind, apparently. Which the first one, I'm going to open up with a question.
Ooh, wait, can I have this one, please, Bae?
You want the question?
Is my favorite question.
Okay, go.
Is it the...
Question 1.
Oh, I also really like that question. But yeah, let's go with Q&A 1. I want to get a little bit more into how you guys have been feeling about the group PvE testing that you've been doing. For example, dungeons and raids, because I know that you, Vig, have been doing a lot of raid testing, and Calli, you said you've been doing some dungeon testing. Right. So we have felt for a long time, we melee, that encounters have been a little unkind to us. Do you feel like this is going to be something that is better in Warlords from what you've seen? Have you seen a shift away from this? How have you felt?
Ask the question too, Anna. What'd you do? Ask the question.
This is from Valkyrian. It says, a lot of encounters in recent raids have been rather unkind to melee DPS. Have you seen any shift away from this in any raid testing?
Did I put the wrong question up here? Hang on a minute.
This is number 1. But let's start with that. I mean, I know we're going after that, but we can start with this one. And let's start with you, Vig. What do you think?
Okay. As a melee who's been raiding as a melee since TBC, I think tier 17 is about on average with tier 15 and tier 16. I think they were relatively friendly towards melee. Definitely more than many fights in tier 14, and definitely overall compared to tier 11, which was really horrible for melee.
Yeah.
So I think tier 17 will be fine for melee for the most part. There's maybe, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 bosses out of the 17 boss entirety that are a tad unfriendly, but they're nothing unmanageable, I think.
How many melee did Midwinter use in tier 16?
I think they had like 11 or 12 on their roster.
So were you pretty much, were you half and half melee and ranged, or would you say that Midwinter used a lot more ranged than they used melee in tier 16?
I think they used more ranged. Right. Keep in mind, like I didn't raid during tier 16 progression with Midwinter.
Yeah. Just questioning your assertion that melee were fine in tier 16.
I mean, I think like,
because I know how many melee Midwinter used, and I know you guys didn't not use any melee, but you definitely used less melee than you used ranged.
I mean, Midwinter still ran with like
Yeah, it's with some melee.
Warrior 2, well, definitely 1 DPS warrior, 3 rogues.
It was more like one, well, more
days.
rogues, but it was more like maybe one of each melee class, whereas with ranged, you can recruit multiple. I'm saying that that's part of the problem. Just because you can bring melee, it doesn't mean that melee are in a good position or a competitive position with ranged.
I mean, my opinion is also a little biased considering I do play a rogue.
So
a lot of
You play the
mechanics that would
chosen-
otherwise
the
kill
chosen melee class.
other melee. The rogue just, has mechanics to either cheese it or just pops faint, and we just keep on going while everyone else just dies around us.
Yeah, basically touch of karma.
Right, and I'm just saying that if your impression of Warlords is that it's going to be okay for melee because it's going to be about like tier 16 was and like the end of MOP was better for melee, I agree that the end of MOP was better for melee. But if you're telling me that it feels about the same as the end of MOP did, then me personally as a Red Paladin, I'm not going to be all that excited about any changes that Warlords has done to make life better for melee.
We haven't seen every boss yet, to be honest. We haven't seen all 17. I know that there was obviously some problems with the Iron Maidens and melee, mostly because of graphical overload and their effects versus our effects. And like, I can't see that I just got one shot by what, because you got Rain of Fires and Chi Bursts and the orbs right now. The monk orbs are broken, so they're like these giant green blocks.
I'm not really counting like any of the non-completed hitboxes or models yet, because that's just something that happens all the time in beta. Or in PTR, and usually gets fixed before live.
Yeah, and I'm coming over from having been a healer and a tank previously, so this has been my first expansion as a melee. Looking at all the bosses, it doesn't seem any worse than previous expansions to me. And I mean, come on, I was a shaman, I was a melee healer. I know how you guys are. We are, rather.
We are, yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, not worse than previous tiers is okay, as long as it's not going to be another tier 11.
It'd be a lot easier, I think, when you can do the squelch toggle for like spell effects on certain fights, where you know you're going to be in a giant like melee pile with bosses and stuff. You can just turn off everyone else's effects, and then you can see
cataclysm spell effects.
Yeah, because that's.
Yeah, I would say something too, that the Windwalker movement speed aura would help, except it's 10% in 10 yards. It's not really going to do anything. I don't think it exists.
Yeah, I've heard about that. I've heard that's really underwhelming. What do you think so far, having used it?
It exists.
It's a thing. It's kind of like
it definitely needs to be brought up to about 20 yards and maybe moved to maybe 12 to 15% movement speed, because it is considered active. So it doesn't stack, for example, with a Druid's Roar. It definitely does need some changes. I don't think it's going to be something that makes you absolutely want and need to have a Windwalker, but I think that if it's extended to 20 yards, it will be helpful to melee, just because then we can move out of stuff a little bit easier.
It's just questionable to me, because I know that that you guys have really wanted. You've joked a whole lot about wanting a raid CD, but you guys have specifically wanted utility that gets stratted around. I would say that that's kind of the desire for the raid CD is you want like the Devo or like the Bop or the Hand of Sack that strats get built around. Yeah, and they've said that this like movement speed boost is that thing, and
it's very underwhelming. It is kind of going back to their philosophy though of bring the player, not the class. So I will give that to them. I mean, it's kind of just a replacement of your boot enchant, really.
Because that's gone, right?
Yeah, it's gone. More or less.
Actually, on that, technically, yes, boot enchants are gone, but there is actually an enchant which increases your movement speed and gives you a secondary stat for the cloak, I believe. It's just not available on the flask guitar right now.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
That's basically what it is kind of the replacement of the boot enchant, provided that doesn't actually get added in. If it does, then it's kind of a moot point. But yeah, I'd love to see the range on it increase. That's my main thing, is bring it from 10 to like 20 to 30 yards, maybe even 40, so that ranged are also benefiting from it.
I don't know if it's going to be... That's really ridiculous. Your whole raid can move faster. I mean, I would imagine you go to like maybe 12 to 15 yards to be a melee thing, because right now if you're on the side of a boss or you're on a different ebb, it's not right there.
Yeah.
But you have to move out of something on that boss to the other boss and like target swap, and the monk's not there, then you don't even benefit from it unless you like walk in range. And you get it's an interesting thing that's there in the first place. But because of its mitigation and small, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's even there.
It also kind of neuters one of the big things with Windwalkers is how mobile we are. If I Flying Serpent Kick into melee or away from something, well, sorry guys, you're just gonna have to be SOL.
True.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it does discourage a lot of that, unfortunately.
And to make the melee clump move with the monk would be to limit the monk's mobility in lieu of everyone else's bonus mobility, which I guess is a trade-off, but meh.
Yeah, I don't see it as a reason to necessarily bring a monk. And that's kind of what a lot of people agree with, I think. And like I said, bring it up to 20 so that at least I can use Flying Serpent Kick.
Yeah. I'll be out of range of everybody. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that, like, oh, it's nice if you have it around, but if you're basically building a strategy around having specific abilities, that doesn't strike me as one where you'd be like, man, we just really need to make sure we don't sit all the Windwalkers. Like, don't really know about that. So.
Yeah.
Yep. You'll probably still have your one monk.
Yeah, your one.
Mm-hmm.
So, anything else on the whole melee conundrum right now with raid testing right now, Vigil?
Yeah, what about you, Vig? What do you think?
As I said, I think rogues are fine in terms of melee. Because, I mean, when there's mechanics that, you know, will kill your other melee, rogue can just cheese them or mitigate them. So
rogues were never kind of in a problematic position, and you guys will probably go on to be not in a
And I mean, combat's kind of in the dumpster right now, but I think assassination is fine. So, and I think in single target sub's also fine. It just doesn't have good cleave. I mean, it has some cleave now, but just not as strong as assassination.
For those that are watching the VOD and whatnot, and O's in chat, so Celestalon is saying that it actually stays on the melee when you Flying Serpent Kick away, or is there like a slight fall off of the buff once you leave the range?
Anyone within 10 yards of the last 6 seconds near the monk.
Last 6 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's definitely.
And he
a good
also
thing,
confirmed the whole boot enchant is on the cape now.
Yeah.
I got that. Two
is
thumbs
that
up then.
On the beta right now? Because I don't think I ever noticed that when I was doing testing this week. It might not be implemented correctly right now. Maybe it doesn't tick properly.
The boot enchant or
the Windwalker aura.
It just doesn't. I mean, I noticed like it'll stay on you after Windwalker leaves your range, but it just doesn't have a timer on it.
Oh, okay. So it might.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be similar to what Wind Fury Totem used to be back in Burning Crusade, where whenever you cast it, you know, then you get like the 10-second buff or whatever, and then it goes away, and then you have to recast it.
Right.
Yeah, that would be better.
All this is just refreshing or leaving itself after they get out of range of you.
Yeah.
Basically. Okay. Yeah, if that works, that's good. How about what? Ailey, you gonna take the next one?
I was going to take the next one too. I'm sorry, it's just my favorite question ever.
Yeah.
Oh
my goodness.
If any of us are going to ask a question, and you took a lot of the ones right before the break, so everybody who watches this show knows that my favorite thing to complain about is spell effect overload. And since we have 2 melee on the show here, I would love to ask you guys, what has your impression been of the changed spell effects that they've implemented? Now, I know that you have had to use a console setting to turn on the suppression, so it's possible that neither one of you have seen it yet. Have you seen the suppressed spell effects, and have they made any difference to your quality of life playing?
I got a new graphics card, so not really. I haven't needed to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
how about you, Vig?
Yeah. I mean, I actually haven't even known about that console command, oddly enough. But I mean, I probably will try it next to testing because that Cataclysm, holy cow, that Cataclysm spell.
Yeah,
effect.
that Cataclysm spell effect. I hear it's one of the worst.
Whenever Warlock uses it, like I think half from melee go, "Oh shit, we're about to die."
Yeah, no, it is.
There's no Cataclysm spell effect on the boss.
When we were testing the stable boss. People kept the tanks were like, "What is that?" And they kept moving stuff away, and we had to wait for a couple wipes where they'd be like, "That's mine. You don't need to move out of that. Thank you. You can keep him in the giant red angry circle. That's actually really good. Thanks."
Yeah, please.
That sounds a lot like. That reminds me of whenever Healing Rain was added. I was still playing Resto, and people kept running out of it. I'm like, "No, please stop. No, stop."
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just
away from the frozen orb.
And there's, I mean, you look at Serenity and Healing Rain and Efflorescence and all the Healing Ground effects, I think. Those 3. Yeah, I think. Oh, and you can even count, like, well, I'm so sorry, Mistweaver Monks, but, like, you know, the Breath of the Serpent, which is, like, an extra amount of just, like, all over the place. So I'm definitely going to see that the toggling on and off will be interesting for certain encounters. It'll definitely help. But, yeah. Oh, Celestalon says that currently Cataclysm spell effect is broken right now. All right. So it won't be a giant angry molten pizza on the middle of your screen when it's cast. Okay. That would be nice.
And yes, they aren't taking spell effects away. I just want to clarify this because I think spell effects are awesome, and there are situations like in PvP where you actually want to see more spell effects and better spell effects. The point is to give you the option to suppress them in like a 20-man environment so that you aren't not able to see the bad stuff on the ground because the Warlock has cast Cataclysm on all of the mobs. Like, that's the really important thing, is that you care a little bit less about all of everybody else's spell effects when you're also trying to avoid the bad stuff and stand in the heals. So it's just an option for those kinds of things.
Yeah, and that's why it's a toggle effect versus just a global toning down, is that in PvP you definitely want to have those spell effects up. And it's not as much of an impact on you as it is in PvE.
I think that's why they have like the whole raid spell, the raid graphics settings under the graphics tab now.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah, that's definitely a great addition.
Definitely excellent.
I'm going to skip the next little topic there because it's kind of, we already kind of really talked about a lot of that stuff anyways. I'm going to move us along to level 100 talents. So we're going to start with Rogues first. You get Venom Zest, Shadow Reflection, and Death from Above, aka probably the coolest new animation in the game. How do they stack up against each other so far on the beta? Are there like one choice per specialization, or can you finagle them in and out, or is it like Venom Zest all the things? Vigil, what do you guys look at right now?
To be fair, all 3 rogue talents are pretty mediocre numbers-wise at the moment. Shadow Reflection is currently the top DPS for each of the 3 rogue specs, but it's not even that interesting when you take into consideration that optimally you can just macro it into your Vendetta or your Shadow Dance and it'll line up pretty well. Venom Zest, even though it sounds good on paper, for assassination and sub, it's not the best, at least single target. I mean, it can be, I guess, okay on multi-target, but like both specs just generate their own energy well enough that you don't need Venom Zest for 5% more energy regen. And then for combat, we don't even know what Venom Zest really feels like because it doesn't work right now with instant poison like it should.
Oh, that's right.
So, I mean, technically, I guess you could test it if you take Leeching Poison, but Leeching Poison is the worst talent on that tier. And then Death from Above is actually a DPS loss to use on single target. And I really wouldn't even recommend it for AoE. And it also
has look freaking awesome, though!
oh, you might look awesome, but it'll also kill you on a lot of fights.
So, there you go. That's true.
I mean, and you don't even have the nice little Killing Spree griff where, you'll know where you'll just, land back where you cast Killing Spree at the end of Killing Spree. Death from Above. Oh my god, what was that mountain guy? The giant rock elemental in Black Ark Foundry. I forgot his name.
Oh, in Black Ark Foundry. No, not Tectus. That's in Highmaul.
Yeah, the guy that did the Earthen Grasp on you, and you had to get in it when he did
the new Kulligarn. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. I didn't test it personally.
Did you fall off the edge?
Did.
Please tell me you did.
Yes, rogues who tested Death from Above would get killed because they would do Death from Above and land behind them and die. Yeah.
Yep, I was waiting for that. Crowmog.
So it has all of the disadvantages of Killing Spree, only it's on a shorter cooldown and is a DPS loss.
Okay.
I would not recommend it at all. It's an awful talent.
Celestalon is challenging you to see a DPS loss theory crafting.
Okay, Celestalon. So. It interrupts your auto attacks for a good second and a half. Unless it can make up for that, I don't know how it's a DPS gain.
Sounds like there's some Twitter fighting that's going to go on at some point here.
Well, that's true.
Make sure that you link it later.
That argument I brought up with Ret Paladins too, because you just take Final Verdict, and in the damage time it takes you to build up the 3 Holy Power to use a Verdict, if you can't make up more damage than that with the seal swapping passives or the Seraphim, it's just a flat downgrade. So if you lose your auto attacks during Death from Above, and that could count to this much damage, and then you Death from Above, and you don't actually overcap that damage you would have just gained from auto attacking, then I guess that's a thing. But I mean, I guess test it. Fiery.
It's one of those things where I see what people are saying when you talk about how it should logically work, but I would love to see some of the numbers that go along with that, and that's what Celestalon is asking for. So everybody, make sure you provide because he's asked.
Yep. No, Fiery just said.
I told him I've told him Shadow Death from Above interrupting auto attacks. It's It's pretty awful.
How about if they could
Interrupting
code it
auto
away
attacks is kind of
when you are death from above-ing, as you jump up and fly down, you're throwing daggers the whole time.
I mean, I think people have suggested that.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I don't know. It depends. I mean, Fiery will get it figured out. He'll do it for the rogues. He'll figure it out for you guys. But yeah, Celestion said it only auto attacks for less than a second. So
yeah, I guess we'll see.
You'll have to see. Yeah.
I mean, the other problem with Death from Above is the absurd energy cost of 50 energy.
Well,
compared to just using say Envenom or Eviscerate for 35 energy.
But I mean, it's a cooldown, right? It's kind of a long
20-second cooldown.
40?
But yeah, yes, it will do a 50% stronger Eviscerate or Envenom, but the two combined, it just doesn't really add up well.
Right. Well, alrighty then. Calli, your turn. We got Windwalker Monk talents and things level 100. You're looking at what it's got here.
Chi Explosion.
Hurricane Strike. Chi Explosion and Serenity. So again, how do they stack up against each other? And do you actually get to finagle these around based on spec? Well, not based on spec, based on fight encounters and stuff? Or are you just like Chi Explosion all the things?
I feel like that's supposed to be the vision, is that we should be swapping between all three of them depending on the fight.
Right.
But that's not what's happening in practice. In practice, Chi Explosion just overwhelms everything else because it gives you a free stack of Tiger Eye Brew for the tooltip says it's 6 Chi for Tiger Eye Brew. Right now in practice it's 4 Chi, which may be a bug, not sure entirely yet. But basically, if that's the case, then that's half the Chi that you have to use for Chi Explosion to get that stack, which is actually a lot of damage. In addition to which, the amount of damage it does is just overwhelming the other three. So there's no point to take, or the other two. There's no point to take Serenity or Hurricane Strike right now. As far as feel goes, I actually really enjoy Serenity. I think it would be a very fun talent for single target fights because, as I said earlier, you get that 10 seconds that you're just smashing a ton of buttons. It's kind of like Old Monk in a way. And so basically you tap your Tiger Eye Brew, you smash a whole bunch, you have like 12, 15 stacks right at the end of that, and then you hit Fist of Fury, and it's a great talent. I love it. And I would love to see it brought up to be more in line. Hurricane Strike, I actually don't mind it. It feels like current Enhancement Shaman to me in that you're kind of just waiting on a cooldown to come up. You're waiting on RSK or Fist of Fury or Hurricane Strike to come up. But unfortunately, since it chooses a random target, it's not going to be that great for example, ad fights. It may be okay for PvP since it does prevent you from movement and pairing effects and stuff like that. But even then, as someone who does somewhat PvP, I would rather be able to focus a certain target because my perspective on PvP is more from arenas than it is from battlegrounds. So, I like to focus on the healer or whomever we're putting pressure on. But yeah, the major problem is just Chi Explosion's too strong right now. The other ones just don't stack up against it. Right now, our damage is really good, and I say this worrying that it may bring down our damage a lot, but right now, we are one of the top DPS classes, at least in all the testing I've seen and all the testing I've done. And I feel that a lot of it is from Chi Explosion. I worry about bringing down its damage may cause us to not be as good at it, but I think that there are other areas we can compensate whenever the numbers pass happens, such as bring up RSK damage. I mean, even our stance can have damage added to it now that other two specs of Monk don't have Stance of the Fierce Tiger. Yeah, exactly. So I think that we still need some tuning in that sense, in that Chi Explosion, it's part of what's making us feel really chi and energy starved is just that talent.
That is, that's the whole point why we're bringing this stuff up, of course, to find these problems with that too. Because you can submit bug reports online or whatever, and even tweet at the devs. But this is a great little avenue we can get out this stuff. So that's what I felt when I was with testing. We did the same thing. Like Serenity felt cool and has different implications. Of course, I kind of put Serenity in like the Spine of Deathwing talent, and then every other fight I just chose Chi Explosion. Yep,
exactly. And I think that Serenity is probably my favorite out of the entire tier. I think all of them aren't as interesting as, say, Zhuan or Rushing Jade Wind were, but that's okay because, we still have access to those level 90 talents, so it's not like those are going away.
Of course.
But again, I really want to see Chi Explosion brought down. I don't want to have to spec into that even for a single target fight.
Yeah. Is interesting. What's up, Vig?
I do also have another issue with Shadow Reflection, which I forgot to touch on.
Sure.
it's a cool talent and concept. You know, you shove them in a little shadow apparition, it copies your text for X number of seconds. But the main issue is that it doesn't copy everything. Things like poison procs, it doesn't copy. Meaning for specs like assassination, you lose your poison damage, you lose your venomous wounds damage, stuff like that. I don't know. It just doesn't copy everything you do.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I wondered about that too, because when I was doing rogue stuff, I thought like Venom Zest felt good on combat because you kind of need energy regeneration. You're like, okay, cool, whatever, but it doesn't work with instant poison. So again, had to fix that. Yeah. And then for subtlety, I was like, dude, Shadow Reflection, you open, you pre-med, you go freaking crazy ham, go nuts. I mean, you kind of do that every time it comes off cooldown, right? You kind of like do this like back to stealth, Shadow Reflection, go crazy. And then for assassination, it was
and then you look at the logs after and say, oh, how much damage did my shadow reflection do?
Yeah,
and it's like 3 to 5%.
He copies bleeds though. He even copies your bleed on kidney shots if you talent it.
He does copy that, I will say.
But he doesn't copy your poisons. I guess that makes sense. What I wonder about is if your
pretty
poison
devastating for assassination.
Could your poison damage be rolled into like a shadow proc on him during his auto attacks? I wonder, because him applying the same poisons as you would be weird. But I think if your shadow reflection could apply like the damage of your poisons during its effectiveness, because your poisons are arbitrary based off your character and your paper doll, so maybe that could happen. So assassination gets some benefit out of it besides just copying the one rupture and like the auto attacks.
Yeah,
and the specials maybe.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty good.
And that chat just brought up something that I completely forgot that I'd put in notes too, is that currently our SCF, Storm, Earth, and Fire, which is our main cleave, isn't even copying Chi Explosion, which is kind of a damage loss. But because we are topping meters without it copying it, that also just shows how broken that ability is, because that's what a crap ton more damage from it whenever it does start copying it. So just another issue with it.
There's a weird copy... all these new abilities that copy stuff from whatever. I think Storm, Earth, and Fire may have been like the first iteration of that. I think in World of Warcraft. I'm not sure, but now you have it with like rogues and a couple other classes have like those sort of interesting mechanical stuff. And I mean, the Shadow Reflection, though, if I'm not mistaken, has a built-in damage loss. It's not your exact damage ranges when I tested it. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and that's what Storm, Earth, and Fire has too. It also has a cutting ability where if you can use it all, whatever, you get the multiplicative stuff and you can actually do more. But, obviously the number pass would fix that, but there's definitely some inconsistency with the copy mechanics right now, or the talents rather. We'll see how that works. Anything else on your talents? Have any other weird iterations with your other talents above your 100s that are having issues right now in beta, or weird complications by chance?
Rogues don't like a lot of their talents.
Well, I think on the rogue
episode, a lot of their talent trees, they're just they don't feel rewarding. Like, oh, cool, this talent changes how I play. At best, it's maybe some little modifier to your kidney shot or deadly throw, which like never gets taken.
Oh, come on!
Yeah,
come on, deadly throw is amazing. No, it would.
The rogue talents need a serious look at. They're just not rewarding.
I mean, that's a topic for another time, and those sort of things have to come from your communities and obviously be like suggestions to Blizzard. I'm sure they've thought of so many talents and different abilities and spells on their whiteboard.
I've read like 1,000 different suggestions to the rogue talents.
Right, of course. So that's obviously they have to come down and Archie and I are talking about a different suggestion for arms warriors and bringing back blood fury. Was it? I think. Yeah. But there are interesting things right now, I think, and that the point is that their copying spells are not working right, and that's the thing to take away from that. So, Well, it would not be an episode of Final Boss without a question from one person in particular. Do you want to take his question too, Anna, or want me to do it?
Question from Seldaric.
Yes.
I'm not even looking at the notes, and I know exactly who that question is from.
Right?
I'll totally take it. Which number is it?
Number 5.
All right, number 5. Let's do this. Sorry, my Chrome froze here. Okay. So Rogue. Why are subtlety rogues going for multi-strike instead of mastery as their best stat in Warlords? Why would mastery not be the ultimate choice? I'm gonna guess this is a question for Vig.
Yep.
Yes.
And then we could put this into the. This is prefaces the
okay.
Windwalker weird sniff right now. So
I'm pretty sure I touched on this earlier in the show, but backstab and ambush multi-strikes now, whenever either of those abilities multi-strike, cause all of your current bleeds on the target to also proc another time. So let's say you've got rupture and like a 3 hemo weave hemo up on the target. Your backstab multi-strikes, and you get an additional proc from each of those bleeds.
So that's why.
Yes, that's why.
Now, is that too good? You think it's just too powerful?
Not really.
No?
No.
Okay.
I mean, multi-strike is the strongest stat, but
Okay.
I mean, I don't think mastery and crit are that far behind. Haste is pretty far down low on the sub-priority now, though.
Okay.
I'm looking at it. Just initial sims.
Gotcha. Now this
Well,
question,
it's kind of nice to get an answer that's like, oh, well, there's a best answer, but it's not broken. That's
Okay.
great. I like this. Let's
Yeah.
not talk about things being broken. Good. This is good.
No, that's fine. But what this brings up, which you answered it just like and just put it to bed with the Rogue one, is I wanted to ask Calli. You had to my knowledge, two different types of builds going for Windwalker going into Warlords now, but now you've got 3 and you've hexed one, so you still have 2 again, but you replace it with a different one. What are your thoughts right now going into these different stat priorities for Windwalker and why?
So because of the slowdown, a lot of people want to go for a haste build. That's been just no, it's not going to be as good because you're sacrificing a lot of the damage that you could get from, say, multi-strike or a crit. So a lot of the monks I've seen who've done really well in our testing, and even in my own testing, I found that multi-strike or crit were better. I think that it's still kind of up in the air which one's going to be better, but at the moment, the logs show that crit is slightly better. But even that kind of goes into some gameplay stuff, and of course RNG, because multi-strike and crit are both very RNG stats. So I think that either one right now is going to be a strong build. Crit, though, seems like it's probably the strongest of the two.
Okay. Just because Fist of Fury got so buffed, is that like the main point of that, you think, maybe? I mean, obviously everything else critting is good too, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's more, I think, because of the slowdown. We just want to get more oomph from each hit that we actually get in.
Right. That's how kind of Arms Warrior feels too. That's why I've always wanted crit, because they want everything to crit on all their slow, big hitting abilities. Right. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. So Mastery, though,
Never going to be. I think that Mastery is still pretty low in our totem skill. I mean, we're still going to want to carry some of it. It's not like you're going to want to have completely 0 Mastery or anything. It's still a good stat. It's just not what you're going to want to push for.
Okay. And Haste, no?
Haste, I don't think is bad. You're definitely going to want some gear with Haste, but I wouldn't make it the main focus of your build.
Okay. Now, I'll bring this over to Vigil again, too, because you're talking about builds, and as everyone knows, Reforging is gone, and gem sockets are a lot more rare on gear. So people might be going like, well, how do I customize my character? And how do I put stats into things that I want to have stats in? So, Vigil, you know what? This is changing.
Yeah.
So what is actually changing for your class customization going into Warlords?
Yes. You can still customize through enchants, flasks, and gems. Oh, well.
And food.
And food. And because compared to, say, previous expansions where, yeah, you'd have, like, enchants for different slots, but you were kind of limited on what the enchants would do. Like,
right.
Gloves, you'd get, you can choose haste, mastery, or if, strength, you could choose strength, stuff like that. But this time around, you can choose any secondary stat you want to for your neck, your cloak, or your rings, as well as for your flask and food.
Yes.
Because flasks are now secondary stats instead of primary stats. So you still have a great degree of customization for your character. It's just now comes in a different form.
Right.
So if you prefer crit, load up on all those crit gems and crit enchants and crit flask and crit food. Right. Or if, say, you do mastery for all that stuff instead. So
it sort of is like, not to like dumb that down, but it's almost as if the enchanting scheme has been simplified. Reforging is removed, but they basically put that systems back into, obviously, player decision with food flask and enchants on your not set item stuff. So it's only on rings, weapons, Those will have different procs, but they're still weapons. You can still enchant them. Chat room, don't freak out. And then cloak and necklace.
Yep.
So, yeah. It's almost, I mean, we kind of agreed behind the scenes. That's almost like an easier and better system than currently. We all kind of think that. I like it, but...
Yep. Especially the fact that it's all on the gear that you're going to be swapping out between specs. So if I go
Correct.
Brewmaster, which I probably will be Brewmaster on some fights, no problem. I can just swap those out. Good to go.
Yep, exactly.
That's
because
the simplified version.
because your 5 main set pieces, because I'm not, they're never gonna bring back 8 sets, I don't think, even though, you know, memories. But those pieces will stay the same because you'll just wear tier gear for every spec, basically.
Yep.
You just swap over and make changes to your, you know, your Mistweaver spec or your other whatever. So
Kind of like what I do when I swap to my tank spec now, exexcept that I really shouldn't.
oh. Well, that's a different.
Hey, it's haste in
let's
both
not-
specs, right?
But yeah. Prot ret paladins, you guys are silly.
It's okay. I have, like,
LOL
2
content a
pieces.
year later.
Pretty much.
I have 2 pieces I swap out just to try to get as close to expertise cap as I can. Otherwise,
Right.
I just don't care about expertise cap. Yeah, screw it. I'll just use Windwalker stats.
Then you have some gear finagling in your offset of your 1. If you take an offset of your 4 or 5, and you go with 1 other piece, and then of course your bracers and your belt and your boots are obviously not part of your set, so you can get a little customization there as well too. So, yep. And also we'll have to see what trinkets come out in Warlords to see what kind of customization we got there as well. Not thinking we're gonna get more than like 3 a tier and like 2 your best, basically. So we'll see how that works out as well. But any final beta closing remarks before we get to the big cool announcement that I have sitting over here?
I like the toy box.
Is it out yet? Is it out yet?
Yeah,
is it out
it's
No,
out
it's
on
not
beta.
yet. No, she means it's the game.
Is it live? Is it
Oh,
live?
no.
Maybe live now? Now? How about now?
Toy box on beta. I
Toy
like
box
it.
on beta?
Toy box is great. Yeah.
Toy box hype? All right.
All right.
I'm a big collector.
That's
gonna-
good.
That's excellent.
clean
Yeah,
up
I
a
know a
lot
lot
of
of
my
people
collection.
are really excited about that. That and more void
Oh.
storage.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
another
yes.
100 slots in void storage.
I
You,
need
you
that.
said you've been playing since vanilla, so you definitely probably have a lot of stuff built up.
Mm.
Oh, you should see the bags on my paladin and rogue.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't have any inventory room on either of them.
Nothing? No inventory
No.
money?
I mean,
Well-
I've even got like all royal satchels too.
Yeah.
So like maybe 10 inventory slots tops.
So then, I guess a closing remark at your class, and for Calli's point, her spec. What do you want to tell all your Windwalker monks that are out there right now, Calli, to, I mean, obviously you said earlier to calm the F down, but any closing comments for your Windwalker friends?
Just to quote one of my favorite books, don't panic.
Don't panic. I like
Don't
it.
Panic. I like it. How about you, Vigil, for rogues?
I think rogues are fine on WoD beta right now. It's just their talents suck. But if you
Aw.
play through MOP, you don't mind your talents sucking because they still sucked in MOP.
Mm.
So nothing's.
But you guys were
they
still
haven't
good.
changed. Yes, they're still fine.
Alrighty then. Well, that's cause for the button. I'm pretty sure that's button timing. So alrighty, everybody. Thank you so much again for watching this episode of Final Boss TV, your WoW Endgame rating show. Around the table again, we had Vigilate from Midwinter. You can go catch him on the Twitters over at Vigilate_MW for when he's doing the things and he puts up posts. I'm sure he'll be retweeting stuff from Ravenholt, I'm sure.
Yes, I also tweet up there whenever I'm streaming.
Good.
On
Sounds good.
Twitch.tv/Vigilate.
Super hard to find, I'm sure.
Yes. Super hard to find.
Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for being on the show, sir. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure being on.
And then we have Calligraphy, now over in Temerity, and you can find her, of course, on Twitter at Calli Monk. That's an I, not an L. Chat room. Calli,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure again.
Yeah,
Even though-
thanks for having me.
Your hair sort of scared me at first, but I've grown used to it now. It's good. It's fine. And then the co-host of Final Boss TV, we have Anafel over here on Twitter as well, at Anafel.
Yes, at Anafeel. Feel free to follow me, but you'll see a lot more stuff than WoW since I'm involved in lots of different activities.
Other
and these
games.
days.
Anna.
Other games and real life things, but I love all my followers, and I definitely appreciate everyone who came out for the show today. Had a really active chat. It was lots of fun, so thanks everyone for watching, and stick around for the after show.
Absolutely. And then, of course, you can find my stuff. Just follow Final Boss TV on the Facebook, the YouTubes, the Twitter. All the links are down below. Our website link is all down there. And some awesome fun links as well. But now, because it's a little different, I usually say who's coming on the show next week. But coming on the show next week is something a little special. So I'm going to bail out of the music real quick here. And hopefully it's not too loud. But here's a sneak peek of our episode next week. That is right, everyone. The War of the Ancients, The Well of Eternity movie by Ketal and Vanille launches on the 16th. The 16th. And our next episode on the 17th, we'll be sitting down with the creator and modeler of that epic machinima to interview them about the behind the scenes, how they made this damn thing over almost 3 freaking years. We'll talk to them about all of that good stuff next Sunday. So we will see you there. Have fun, everyone. Have fun at work this week. Trust in the coin. Stick around for the after show if you have some questions for our awesome guest today. But until then, bye-bye, everybody. Bye. 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 Wave bye. Oh my goodness, wave bye. Do it. Do it, guys.